Hello,
Charlie. Good evening.
Ross. Long time no see. This is amazing.
It's been a while. It has. Now, there is a reason we called this podcast "Talking Florida Rugby" occasionally.
That was very wise.
Not just because TFRO sounds a lot better than TFR or TFRO. So, it has been a while, but we're back, and so is rugby in Florida. We'll get to that in a minute. In some shape or form, it's not quite the rugby we're used to, in that there's some division changes and competition changes and obviously protocol changes. But we'll get to all that stuff in a minute. I'm Russ Davenport here with Charlie Velasquez of rugbyfl.com. The best, I'm going to say, it's the best local rugby site in the United States of America, if not Canada as well. I'm going to throw Canada in there as well because I have no idea about Canadian rugby really at a local level. So I'm going to say it's the best site in North America, maybe Mexico.
Let me give you a little fact. I did some research trying to find one state or GU that would provide scores of all the games in the state or the GU, and I could not find one.
No, I 100% believe that. It's, you've done an amazing job, Charlie. And I'm obviously glad to come here and help you with this podcast, which is a very amateur podcast. Let me restate that. This is a very amateur podcast.
I've seen worse. I've seen much worse.
But we do try to be professional, and Charlie is the most professional part of this podcast with all his production value. You saw some of the highlights he puts together at the start of this podcast. He doesn't have to do that. He maintains, as I said, rugbyfl.com. And if you would like to help Charlie and myself out with this podcast, you can. Obviously, there's hosting costs, equipment costs. We've upgraded our cameras and our headsets, so we should sound a little better than we have perhaps in the past. Charlie even turned his camera around and sort of gave us a different view. You can see us, I think, on the big TV screen behind you. But as you can see at the bottom of the screen there, rugbyfl.com/GoFundMe, or you can Venmo Charlie at rugbyfl.com. Charlie's going to start. We talked about doing his usual annual fundraising because he doesning receive any funds from the union at all. I think some people get confused by that and then they think Charlie gets some kind of funding from the union. Obviously, Charlie hasn't done any videotaping of it at all over the last 10 months, which is one of his primary incomes. So, folks, go help Charlie out. He's a good rugby guy. His heart's in the right place, and he's here for us all of Florida Rugby with rugbyfl.com. So if you can help out, I know times are tough right now for everybody.
Oh, yeah.
People out of work. But if you can help out, the information is at the bottom there. You're going to leave that up all episode, Charlie. That's probably a good idea, I think. And
yeah.
I'll mention it again later. So all funds, anything, $1, $5, $10, whatever you can do to help out Charlie with the costs. So I think Charlie is probably, with the website and the podcast, it probably runs at least $50 a month, I know, with hosting, etc.
Well, you know what? It's. I just want to say a couple of things. One thing is, another thing that I think many people sort of assume that Rugby FL, which has been online since 2012, that in itself is a major milestone, 8 years, non-stop pretty much. This is only me. I don't have a team, which I should have, and that may be one of the reasons that, I struggle with the money-wise, and it's really not the cost of the hosting. Those are not, they're not big things. But if you want to put out a nice product that is updated, you want your scores every Saturday, and not only that, because when you look into detail, there's a lot of information on the site that I try to keep upgraded, and that is time. It's mostly time,
For sure, time is money.
The time doing research, even for this podcast, as it looks pretty nice today. I think that background today is inspiring.
It does.
But you have to do all these graphics, and you have to, search for the pictures, do the videos, upload them. It is a lot of work, and I would like to do more work, but to be honest, I just can't.
You got to pay the bills, and you got to do your regular job too. Yeah,
And
Charlie's a one-man show at rugbyfl.com, and we could just do this as an audio podcast if we wanted to. But I think Charlie brings that extra production value with the videos and, as I said, the highlights and the graphics that you'll get to see tonight. We're both a little rusty, having not done this for a couple of months. Just like I'm sure the players were this weekend. I reffed a friendly a couple of weeks ago, and it looked like a friendly that nobody had played in quite a while. So I'm sure some of the games, which we'll get into the scores of the games and some reports, and we'll talk to a coach of a winning side this weekend as well later in that podcast. But again, if you can help Charlie out, rugbyfl.com/GoFundMe, or you can Venmo him straight there at rugbyfl.com. That's probably the easiest way to do it, the less messy way. Rugbyfl at rugbyfl on Venmo. All right, Charlie, I'm Ross Davenport, as I mentioned. I'm not doing any Rugby Atlanta games this year, so I'm just focusing on my referee assignments, which have been interesting this year already because we're down a few refs due to COVID concerns. One of our refs had COVID, so I hope he's getting better. I won't mention his name, but if he's watching, I hope you get better out there. Mr. Referee who was in hospital, a South Florida referee who was in hospital for a couple of weeks recovering from COVID. So hopefully he gets better and gets back on the field soon. We also had a couple of referees just withdraw from the season due to COVID, but it's been a challenge. But we got through 1 week, and we'll get to that in a minute. So let's get to our three quick things before we get to the games of the week. Obviously, the first thing we're going to talk about is COVID. We did invite members of the FRU board to join us this evening to sort of give us an update on things. Communication from the board, depending on who you talk to, has been spotty at best regarding COVID protocols. Things have got a little better. I know we've had some controversy this week, which we'll get to as well as we go along. The Carolinas let's give our COVID update. The Carolinas GU just canceled their 15th season in the last few days. Kerry O'Malley, our union president, told me that they have a much stricter mask mandate up there, involving even being outdoors and having to wear a mask. So it was almost going to be impossible to play rugby up there as things stand at the moment. So Carolina GU has canceled their 15th season. True South is just playing friendlies. They're not having a matrix league. Texas is playing right now. SoCal is a meeting in February to discuss. Thanks to Randall Johnson, one of our referees and a member of the Midwest board, is keeping us updated. A lot of the things that are going around the country. Obviously, most places in the country right now, anywhere in the north, it's too cold to play rugby now anyway. But that's kind of an update. Mid-America is also not playing this spring, but yeah, everywhere else just too cold right now. So in Florida, we're very lucky. Obviously, the numbers here, I think over the last few days, have started to perhaps decline a little bit. But obviously, the numbers are still pretty scary up there. But Randall was talking to us about play in the Mid-South and Midwest earlier in the fall, that there was really no spread blamed on rugby at all going back to the fall. So that's a good positive thing. So obviously, the men got underway this past weekend. U23, which we'll get to, gets underway this coming weekend. The women, we're not sure about. They may start play on the 6th. We're not 100% sure if that's going to happen yet. They're going to have a meeting this week. Certain teams struggling with numbers, struggling with committed players to play in this COVID situation. So we'll see what happens with the women. As I mentioned, there was some questionable stuff going on this past week, and there was a youth game that was canceled on Saturday involving two teams due to a COVID positive test that I found out about on Friday night. But that same team wants to play this weekend, which I'm not sure if they will be allowed to do or not. I also heard some rumblings going on of a senior men's team that had at least one positive COVID test during the week, but still decided to play this weekend. Now, that's not for me to name and shame, but if the union decides to investigate that, they will. But Charlie, I know you and I have managed to stay COVID-free so far. What is your opinion on just the whole COVID situation?
I'm like so happy to see rugby again, but at the same time, when I'm watching, even this weekend, I was at one of the games, the D2 games, and of course the players are not going to play with a mask, but I pretty much did not see one mask in the stands, and it wasn't very crowded, but there were some people. And to be honest, I'm just like crossing my fingers that we can get through this season. but it's like a weird feeling that something is not right, you know.
No, I think that's the same for me with almost every sport out there at the moment. There's professional sports playing without fans. There's obviously sports like us that are trying to get by as we can, but obviously no team is playing. I don't think any team out there is playing to full strength at the moment. Which does that dilute the quality of the product on the field? And at the end of the day, if you win the state title this year, is it because it come with an asterisk on it because so many teams are playing shorthanded? To me, if you want to play rugby right now, great. But I would rather, I think, just have done what the what the True South is doing. Perhaps just play friendlies. If you want to play, go play another team. But we'll have to see if we can get through the season, as you said, Charlie. I think rugby is outside. There is a lot of close contact, and the more and more people get vaccines over the coming months, the safer it'll be. We just have to reach out. These teams out there that do have, if you do have a positive COVID test, please abide by the FRU guidelines, which are out there and available to everybody. I'm not going to repeat them out there because they're out there if you want to go look at them. But because as my wife said to her teammates the other day, you can't control what other teams do, right? You can only control what your team does. And part of playing rugby is taking that risk that you hope that these other teams are also following the COVID protocols and doing things properly, but you can't guarantee that. So hopefully everybody stays safe. We got through one weekend without too much drama, COVID-related drama. We had some drama. There's no doubt about that, which we'll get to in a minute. But let's get to let's get some positive news, Charlie.
Yes, go ahead.
Our last two, my second and third, three quick things are going to be some positive things about Florida players. This lady pictured right here is everybody calls her Kiki Jordan. Her first name is really Narcisse, but former crew player. She actually was playing Premier 15s for England while at college for Worcester. She was at college at Cardiff Met, and I think she's back in the USA now just because of the whole COVID mess. But back in November, Charlie, I'm not sure if this was before or after our last episode, but Kiki, in November, the U.S. Women's Rugby Foundation announced their inaugural 15 under 30 to watch, so 15 players under the age of 30 award. And Kiki was one of those women named to that prestigious group of players, coaches, administrators, journalists, and referees. So congratulations to Kiki, former crew player. I think she played one season at crew. I'm not sure if she's back here in Florida or in her native Ohio at the moment, but great to hear Kiki Jordan getting some recognition, I should say, from the USWRF, which is
great.
This award was created to highlight those who exemplify. This was from their press release. This award was created to highlight those who exemplify the best qualities of rugby and bring those qualities to the field, to their teams, to the sport, and to the local global communities. Now, Kiki is a prop, a mother of two, and a visual artist, and her husband, I think, is in the military. So obviously a great human being. Congrats to Kiki for the award, and hopefully we can get to see her playing perhaps back in the UK once this is all done and dusted. Premier 15 is really getting some good exposure media-wise. You can catch a lot of the games live on the internet. Hopefully we'll get to see her back on the field soon for Worcester. Now, another Florida, he's a little more of a Florida native, we shall say. Originally from Naples, played for the Naples Bears, and that's Malachi Esdale, also played rugby for UCF. There he is there on the left in the yellow and black of the Houston SaberCats. Malachi was finished up. I don't think he's quite sure we're trying to get him on the pod. Charlie and I have reached out. Maybe we'll try and get him this spring once Houston gets back in session here soon, because obviously the MLR season coming up in a couple of months. He was been playing 15s, and then USA decided to give him a look at sevens. He was involved in the sevens residency program this past year, so 2020. They finished up their inter-squad scrimmage, last month, December. So he was part of that inter-squad scrimmage. He was playing for the rampaging Ridgebacks against the Schnuggle of Schnauzers. They apparently I can't explain this. They apparently call themselves the Dogs. So part of that nickname, they came up with the rampaging Ridgebacks and the Schnuggle of Schnauzers. The Schnauzers were more of the established guys, Madison Hughes, etc. With the rampaging Ridgebacks, more of the up-and-coming names. But Malachi Esdale definitely one to keep an eye out this year at the MLR level, and we'll see if he ends up sticking to 15s or whether he goes the sevens routes. So two positive things to finish. Three quick things. I did add, Charlie, that the Junior World Championship was canceled again. The Dallas Jackals were pushed back to 2022, which is a little annoying because they already signed players. So, and also Chris Latham, the former Australian legend, stepped down at Utah for, quote, personal reasons, which we have a slight Florida connection there because Alex Tucci plays prop for Utah, so hopefully that doesn't affect his playing time. Although I know they brought in at least one solid prop, so Alex will certainly have to fight for some playing time there. All right, three things. We're done. Go ahead, Charlie.
I just kicked myself out for a second. I don't know if you noticed.
I didn't hear the but I was rambling on, so I wasn't paying too much attention.
Okay.
I have a sip of my gin and tonic here. I told the wife I'd be done by 8:30, so we're 15 minutes in. So let's get on to Saturday's action. We did invite some coaches to come on and talk about their teams. Guys, if you're watching this or you know some coaches out there that want to come on out, we may do this on a Sunday, some weeks on a Monday, some weeks hopefully not as far back as Tuesday, but we'll see. If you want to come on and talk about your team and your club and how they're doing, win or lose. Listen, I don't want just winners coming on. We do have a winner joining us today, but I want winners and losers to come on. And
listen, Ross, let's be clear. We just decided last night to do this, so we
sort of back and forth where we're going to start this. So this is 1 day of prep, or less than 1 day of preparation for this. So
one coach is good enough. We did invite like 6 or 7 or like something like that, but it was very short notice. So
anybody that wants to come on and discuss, Charlie will always post I don't know if you've done it already, Charlie. Charlie posts the StreamYard link on the Facebook and YouTube pages on the comments.
I will do it a little bit later.
Yeah, so Charlie will do that. If you're interested in joining us, Charlie's going to post the StreamYard link in the comments on the YouTube and Facebook pages. So if you click on that, grab yourself a pair of headphones. I know our coach doesn't have one on right now, but he sounded okay in the test. But having the headphones on just helps with the echo and the feedback. So grab yourself a pair of headphones and you can just click on that link and we'll jump on in and we can discuss whatever you want to discuss. I know I sent you, Charlie, an interesting Facebook discussion that I had this week regarding public social media criticism of a referee this past weekend. Hopefully, if any of those guys are watching from those clubs involved and they want to jump on and discuss this face-to-face, we will. But we'll get to that maybe a little later. But we did have games this past weekend. Again, not every division started. So in Florida this year, D2 and D3 are combining to play each other. They're trying to sort of keep the local games as close as they can, at least for the group stages. And we're going to take a look at the results from the weekend in a minute. But first of all, let's take a look at this. This is my game of the week. We're going to have a game of the week every week, Charlie. This one was a pretty easy one.
Yeah.
This was a 21-3 win by, we'll say Division 3. Normally in Division 3, Palm Beach over, obviously, multiple time. How many times have they won it in a row, Charlie? 4? 4. That's a good guess.
No, it's true. It's true.
It is 4, I think. So 4-time defending D2 state champions, Miami Tridents hosted Palm Beach. Now, this was a rescheduled game because Miami RFC were supposed to play Palm Beach, I think, this past weekend. And
correct.
Miami's having some field troubles. They're having trouble getting fields from the city just due to the COVID situation and haven't even been able to practice yet, as far as I know. So Miami canceled this first game. So Palm Beach and Miami Tridents decided to move this game up a month or so and play it down in Miami instead of the originally scheduled Palm Beach. And Palm Beach didn't seem to care, and it turned out to be a wise decision as they ended up winning 21-3. I did have some multiple scouts at this game. I wasn't there myself, but I did talk to at least 2 or 3 people that were at that game and saw some, obviously, highlights that we're going to get to in a second from Charlie, who videotaped the contest. I don't think the Tridents had their full... Well, what we expect to see from the Tridents, right, as four-time defending state champions. I don't know their COVID situation, how many players they've had decide not to play this season, how many players have left, etc. So, but from all reports I'd heard, it wasn't the Tridents that we're used to seeing, but still, that doesn't take anything away from a very good Palm Beach victory. Anytime you can hold a D2 side to 3 points, it's a good day. And I'm not wearing pink for Palm Beach today. I want to make that totally clear. I finally got this jersey from my buddy Ail Hakim. It's got my mom's name on the back. She passed away a few years ago from cancer, and it's a great tribute jersey. So I'm wearing that today. It's nothing to do with Palm Beach. Okay, I'm a very unbiased commentator on this on rugby in Florida. Okay.
So am I, unless it's my kids' team. Then I lose a little bit of bias.
Well, you do sometimes message me with derogatory terms about certain teams that I'm not going to mention ever on this podcast. Your kids aren't playing right now, Charlie. I'm trying to get one of them to referee. I understand that they're grown-ups now with proper jobs, etc. But hopefully we'll see them out in the field again soon, either
hopefully
with a jersey on or a whistle. So tries for Palm Beach. We're going to play these highlights now, Charlie.
Yes, whenever you say.
Tries for Palm Beach were scored by Declan Reed and Austin Parrish, while South African import Dendre. I'm going to wreck this name, and I'm going to ask Usti how to say it properly in a minute. But Dendre Stridham, he had 11 points with the boot, three penalties, and a conversion. So let's take a look at some of the highlights here on the long grass of North Miami. Obviously, Trident's in black and Palm Beach in their traditional pink. Here's Stridham now with a penalty kick to get the scoring started. Of course, we're used to the American football posts by now at rugby games.
I'm not used to them at all.
It's not great, but listen, in this day and age, if we can get fields, we can get fields. This looks like the first try here from Palm Beach, perhaps?
Yes.
Or was that the one that snuck out the...
No, that's the first one.
Stopped just short, and then the big boys piling over for the first try of the game for the boys in pink. Conversion is good by Stridham, who's probably not used to kicking over football posts, but doesn't really matter. As long as you got two uprights and a crossbar.
Yeah, it's a little easier.
I want to ask Usti. He has a very good existing good kicker in Justin Philpott. I'm not sure what's happened to him, whether he's still around or he's just lost his starting kicking position, but we'll get to that in a minute with Usti. There's the Tridents with their only 3 points of the day. Yeah, a few unfamiliar faces on this Tridents lineup. They are fielding two sides this year. Their B-side is playing at Division 4, so they're obviously not shorter numbers, just perhaps not as many players back from last season as we predicted. Obviously, this is going to be a weird season, right? There's going to be teams that are short more people than others. Let's trade them with another penalty. Here's a good contested ruck here. They're going to have a penalty here for holding on. Referee Kai Martinovich there, one of the best up-and-coming referees in the south of the United States. A little chip through here. This was one I think we weren't sure exactly what happened here. It looked like it snuck out behind the flag before it could be grounded by the Tridents. Yeah. Now, Charlie, you and I were lamenting if we actually had qualified ARs in these games, but at the moment we're lucky to have referees at all.
Yeah, that is true.
I'm still missing referees in Jacksonville. I may have found the solution to that, but there's 2 games at Tallahassee this weekend. If anybody wants to ref them, they're offering accommodation as well as increased pay. So if you're watching this and you're a qualified referee and you feel like taking a day trip to beautiful Tallahassee on Saturday, January 30th, there's another penalty there by Stridham. And that's the final score of 21-3 Palm Beach. So a pretty big upset in most people's eyes. Again, I don't think it was quite the full strength Trident side that we're used to seeing. But nonetheless, a great victory for Palm Beach and a nice little boost for the boys in pink. So let's talk to head coach of Palm Beach, one of the best coaches in the state. Took Palm Beach to a national semifinal appearance a couple of years ago. Chris Oosthuizen. Usti joining us this evening. Chris, how are you, my man?
Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to talk with you guys. Charlie, first of all, thanks for putting this together and for all you do for rugby, man. It's really, really well received and appreciated from us.
I enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot.
That's the thing. Charlie and I wouldn't do this if we weren't having fun.
Oh yeah,
we have fun doing it, and we're glad anybody tunes in. To be honest, whether it's live on the video pod or on the podcast audio later, which may not be up tonight, but we should have the podcast audio.
Yeah, and Ross, for you, thanks for wearing pink. That's again, regardless of what you say, thank you.
I just got this jersey this week, and it's a great little jersey, so I was proud to wear it. Whether it's again not in support of you guys, I love you guys, but truly in support of breast cancer awareness. I think February is breast cancer awareness month. But I'm a little ahead of things. But anyway, let's get to Saturday, Chris. Tell us about the game. I wasn't there. Charlie was taping it. How did things go? Did they go to plan for you?
Yes, it did. We went in with very little expectation. We know that Tridents is a quality team, always have been. And so for us, it was basically a brand new team. We wanted just to play to the patterns that we want, or practice, And we viewed this as a scrimmage rather than a game. And we want to iron out our defense, mainly our defense. And if the attack comes, it comes. And I think in that sense, we were very successful with that.
Yeah, I think it's a good way kind of to look at this season because you're not guaranteed games, right? At this point, the season could potentially end at any point or be delayed. So I think every game you had, you just got to kind of go into as a growing experience. And as you said, against a strong side like the Tridents, I assume had you watched any tape of them, or did you just know obviously of their history? Had you watched? I assume there wasn't much tape.
The week prior to their game, I did look at some video of them, and then to your point, they were nowhere near a full strength squad. Just from the video to what I've seen on the field. So I didn't know what to expect. Obviously, with COVID, who are they going to show up? But I just wanted my players to be able to play up, give them an opportunity to see some really good play. And as you know, as being a rugby person, if you play against the quality side, then the level of your own players then lift.
It should, yes.
The players you play, the better the game becomes, And so that was my hope for my players.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this season as a whole, I didn't really ask you this question in the prep, but looking at this season as a whole, what do you really, obviously, ending up with a title, however you want to call it, is nice, but what do you want to see out of this season as a coach from your team?
I want to see the young guys come through. We've worked really hard in changing the culture of our team, and I want to see the young guys step in and take over the squad and make it their own. And really buy into our culture and what the team is all about. Whether we win, lose, or draw, I really don't care. I want them to develop first as human beings. So for me, that is the primary focus. And then secondly, if they get better rugby or become better rugby players, that's a bonus. So
it is, sure.
I would hope that at the end of the day we all get out there as better human beings.
No doubt, that's what this sport's all about. Now, how do you think this squad compares to? Obviously, you went to the national. I think it was the Final Four, right, in 2019.
Correct.
How many are left from that squad in that starting 15
yesterday? There's probably 8 or 9 left.
Okay, so a good chunk.
Yeah, it's a good chunk. So it's a good core of the team. We lost some really good players, but then again, we have a bunch of young guys that's coming through, that's stepping into the shoes. One in particular, Dendre Stradom.
I was going to mention that. How to say? First of all, how to say his name, and secondly, how did he come about? Obviously, a quick Google search of his name in rugby shows that he played, a pretty decent level in South Africa.
Exactly.
How did he end up over here?
Yeah, he's a seasonal worker, so he works at one of the golf courses at Boca.
Yeah.
And then my number 7 flanker, Yassine Desai, he's from Cape Town, also a seasonal worker. Haven't played for 3 years, and then started coming in, but he's got the background for it. And then our fly-off, Fabian Lumsden, played for Arizona State as a flanker, and I retreaded him first last year as an inside center, and now he's fly-half, and he's doing the job for us. Our scrum is much smaller than it used to be, but very mobile. And that's what I'm going for. I want to play an expansive type of game.
Gotcha. Yeah, the seasonal worker thing, Boca, I think, has taken advantage of that a little bit as well. Those that don't know, I mean, I worked at Hunters Run Country Club in Boynton Beach, and there was a lot of seasonal South Africans that would come over. I assume there's a company that brings them in. Obviously charges them a little bit and they get jobs here. There's actually the apartment complex down the road from me. The bus picks them up every day from there and brings them to their jobs every day. So I see them getting on the buses, but it almost brings me back to Boca in the mid-2000s when they were getting a lot of the Southern Hemisphere boys coming in, either on the boats or as part of the country club system. So I'm glad to see you guys taking advantage of that. Yeah, and it's obviously shown in this first game. Now, you mentioned, are there any other players to watch? Where's Dendre started playing? Is he playing 10?
He's playing 15. That's where he's played his rugby back in South Africa. Then on the film there, you'd see number 9, Devarius Miller, Beanie. He played for Riviera Beach since a young boy, coached him in juice and all the way up. Special player. He used to play fly half, but started playing him at scrum half. And I mean, watch that kid. He is going to go places.
Yeah, scrum half's not an easy spot to learn. I know he's played a little more in the backs, I would assume, than at 9, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, and as I say, there's unfortunately we lost Declan Reed. This COVID situation is bad, and so he lost his job, and so he had to move back to Atlanta. So that was a teary farewell there. Unfortunately, is a very good.
That was after this game, yeah.
Yeah, it's after this game. Yeah, so
Okay.
he's moved back to Atlanta, unfortunately. Other than that, you guys may have remembered Beauchamp Jackson.
Another one, yeah.
He's also coming back, so hopefully he'll be joining us here shortly.
Excellent. So a lot of your alum players, went to Riviera Beach, coming back to the area after their time in college. That's great to see. Now, how's your club been dealing with COVID? What sort of precautions have you guys been taking to really hopefully?
We take it very seriously. Yeah, we do take it very seriously. I myself had COVID just before Christmas, and we shut the club down for 14 days. Actually, no, 16 days. Where we had no play or practice, and so we take it very serious. We follow the federal and state regulations, and then also what Palm Beach or Palm Beach County put forth, and follow the guidelines from FRU. We take it very seriously, taking temperatures, making sure that we sanitize whenever we can. And to Charlie's point, hey, Charlie, I was one of the guys with the masks in the stand,
Yeah, good. No, I did see some, but I would have expected to have everybody masked up because it's not that like it's getting really good right now, right?
Yeah.
No, but Usti, in my history of reffing your games, you're always one that sits behind the posts up on the hill anyway.
I don't want to be by the players. I swear too much.
Well, Chris, I appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening. Great start to the season for the Palm Beach Panthers, and hopefully you guys stay safe for the rest of the way and keep winning, and maybe we'll see you down the road here in the playoffs.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Ross. Charlie, thank you very much.
Thank you for coming.
Cheers, Usti.
Bye.
Thanks to that man. He's a great coach. Obviously taking some all-star stuff as well, out taking the teams outside of the state to great success and doing a great job with Palm Beach. Again, taking them to the Final Four in 2019. It's unfortunate, really unfortunate for them that last season didn't happen, and there's obviously no national championships this year. But hopefully, Palm Beach will continue to take the step up. Maybe they'll jump up to D2 at some point. We'll see. All right, that's enough of that for our game of the week. Let's get to our next game, which, for other reasons, was another game I wanted to talk about. Sarasota against Bay Area Pelicans. The Surge won it 23-5, which I don't know. Charlie, I think I texted you that was perhaps a slight upset. Pelicans have been on the up last season for sure, after a few down years. I'm obviously always fighting for players against the D2 crew, and then obviously not far away from each other. But they looked like they were coming up last season, and this was a home. I think this was in Sarasota. Sorry. So it was a road game for them, not a long trip by any means, but a disappointing 23-5 loss. I did obviously get some reports from this game as well. A very physical contest. Referee, as you can see, I think you can see on the stats there, it lists 5 yellow cards there, but my report was that there were 6 yellow cards. It was a very physical contest. There was a couple of brouhahas, which I think was to be expected, Charlie, as these guys have been cooped up for 10 months and hadn't played a proper rugby game with anything on the line in quite a while. So I figured there was going to be one or two games this weekend that had some cards here, and then luckily we didn't see. I think we only saw the one red card in the Tridents game for a bit of fisticuffs.
Yeah,
but Sarasota. Sarasota over the last few years they've been known for their very physical play and sort of playing on the edge. I've reffed them a couple of times, and they're a frustrating team to ref, and I'm sure they're just as frustrated to play against. And the Pelicans got a little frustrated, and I'm not gonna name and shame, but certain people went on the rampage on social media after the game and criticized the referee, who I'm not going to name either. But this is something I just wanted to rant about. Maybe we could have a Ross's rant segment, Charlie.
Oh, sure.
As your phone rings, $5 fine.
Oh, shoot!
$5 fine for Charlie's phone going off in the middle of the podcast. But yeah, listen, criticizing referees in a public place like social media doesn't do anybody any good. We had a good back and forth conversation in the comment section before it was deleted in the end by the original owner about the fact that criticizing a referee on the social media platform doesn't do anybody any good, right? I think, Charlie, you would agree with that. I'm okay with if somebody wants to send an email and constructive criticism to our FRA president. This is why you always encourage teams to videotape games. I've had games over the last 2 years where I've sat down with the referee and we've gone, virtually and gone through the game bit by bit. Coaches have sometimes even sent me time-stamped emails with with a video attached saying, here's the stuff I see, and I would go through it and I'd say, no, this was fine, and yes, this needs looked at. But I think going on social media and saying a ref, I'm going to use the quote, saying a ref is shit is not going to help anybody. So hopefully any of you out there, if you do have a disappointing refereeing situation in your game, reach out to myself or Roy Monk, president, and express your frustration via email. We're always looking for constructive criticism, especially when we can't watch these referees as much as we'd like to, just because of the lack of available coaches, etc. So, Sarasota, again, they've had I know there was some things being thrown around by the Pelicans about Sarasota players, and listen, Sarasota players have had their issues on the field over the last couple of years with some incidents, even involving referees. It's perhaps a culture thing that I've seen teams turn around. Charlie, you've been here long enough to know when the Tridents were that team that sort of had that stigma attached to them as being a pain in the ass, right?
Right.
One way or the other.
Yes. And at the time, I actually talked to them when you mentioned the Tridents, because that is the thing. Putting just saying those type of things, or it really goes nowhere. It really goes nowhere. And of course, in any game, if you ask 5 people what did they see in any given play, you're going to have 5 opinions.
Of course.
And unfortunately, it's a referee who has to take the action, and so many things can happen. If you complain, oh, he didn't see a knock on, you saw it, but who knows if the referee was, his position. So many things, and especially when it comes to foul play. If a team does not video their game, it's always, I mean, we had some very big issues here a few years ago involving a referee, that if it was not for the video, it would have just gone pretty much probably unnoticed.
No,
and even if the team who is responsible of the foul play, they should be the first ones to take action within the club.
Yep.
Because we have to take care of the game. And for me personally, rugby, the first thing I can think, and the thing I love the most, is respect. And that, it's respect with your teammates, your opponents, and for some reason, especially the referee thing, I think it's what makes this game such a different game. And I don't see enough of teams and clubs, building that culture of respect. You see sometimes, U16s, U19s, just basically effing off the referee. I mean, they didn't explain to that kid what the game is about.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie, you and I could go on about this forever. I think it starts at the top of the club. Discipline. This discipline was the main issue mentioned in this comment thread on Facebook about that was the issue in this game. And I said, well, discipline starts with the captain of the team, and then it goes to the coach. And if I was saying my pregame speech, if you two can't handle what's going on the field with your teammates, then I'm going to go to the book. And that's what the referee did in this game. Gave 6 cards, and apparently players still didn't want to listen. So, I understand it's the first game of the quote season, and people were riled up. But as I said to you, Charlie, there was in a different game, there was a referee that I'd reached out to the winning team, the losing team, as well as a neutral party that had been at the game. And you'd think that they watched 3 different games.
Yeah.
The losing team was upset. They said there was fights breaking out everywhere. There were 2 tries that they scored that shouldn't have counted. There's punches. Of course, there's always video to back it up. If you do video, I don't care who videotapes the game, whether it's you or a parent or an old boy. I plead to every team out there to videotape games. So we do have coaching situations where we can coach a referee. This is what you missed. I understand. Listen, with phones these days, and as cheap as cameras are, there's my wife commenting that I'm ranting. Again, I got to finish this before 8:30, otherwise she's going to rant at me when she gets home. Yeah. My daughter's softball practice. So, listen, as I said, it is a culture thing. It starts at the top. People have to be held accountable. and hopefully things will get better as the season goes on. Listen, as I mentioned before, I have 2 games this weekend still that don't have referees. We're just that short. And seeing a referee get criticized on social media is not going to help bring in new referees, right? It's hard enough for them getting criticized from the sidelines for 80 minutes. Now they have to deal with coming home and seeing social media and seeing criticism there. As Charlie just posted, if you want to join in and discuss anything we're talking about, you can jump into that link there that he's posted on the YouTube and the Facebook page as well. Just grab a pair of headphones and come and join us. All right, on to the next game. So again, good win for Sarasota in the end, 23-5. They're going to go on the road in a couple of weeks. I think the D2, D3 are off next week for the most part.
Yes.
They'll go up to Naples on February 6th, which should be a very interesting West Coast clash. And then the rematch against the Pelicans will be on February 27th. So that should be another interesting one to watch, depending where each team is at that point. The next result to discuss, as Charlie pulls up the results from the weekend, is Brevard 32, Jacksonville 12. And I did see that. I do like when teams post their squads before the game.
Yeah, that's neat.
A day before, or a couple of days before. Each club should be using social media to promote their squads, and Brevard did a great job. If I saw the squad, and there was some names in there that rang a bell, obviously from some all-star teams, etc., especially on the 7th sides of things. It was a very strong team, and Brevard have been creeping. They've really tried to sort of break up that Gainesville, Palm Beach stranglehold that those two teams have had on the D3 over the last few years. And maybe this is the year that Brevard take that next step. Could this be the year? So a good win for Brevard by 20 points over a Jacksonville team that dropped down from D3 to D2. But I'm hearing good things about the Jacksonville program in regards to money and support from the old boys. I know they just got a brand new scrum machine, which looked awesome on Facebook. Some, like a proper steamroller scrum machine.
Yeah.
Our president jumps in. Listen, that's why she gets paid the big bucks, right?
What I think is happening in Jacksonville is they're like consolidating all the teams, the youth, the women, the men, all in one club, if I'm not wrong. And they definitely are doing a very good job in getting sponsors, which is something that every club has to do, and it really pays off,
Oh, and we do have somebody joining us now. The aforementioned Carrie O'Malley is going to jump in here. Carrie.
Nah, I'm not going to let this one in. Nah. She's way too late.
We have to be nice.
Okay. And she's only on voice. Hi, Carrie.
Hey, how's it going?
Carrie, how are you?
Nice to see you.
I'm only here in case you guys have questions about like return to play, or I don't mind commenting on the bashing of referees on social media either, but I'm just going to echo your sentiments. So
I think I went off on that enough. Well, let's talk about back to play protocols. Maybe you could just sort of fill us in on the main thing. If a team does have a positive COVID case, which I know at least 2 teams this past week, last week had positive COVID cases. Again, the youth team ended up canceling their game, but I know I have a men's team that I'm not going to name and shame, as I said, that had a positive case yet still played their game on Saturday. How long are teams supposed to? I don't know whether quarantine is really the word, but how long should they put their rugby on pause if somebody does test positive within the program?
So the CDC guidelines right now for normal interaction is if you are in contact with someone that tests positive, you can leave isolation after 7 days with a negative test. So you're supposed to wait 5 days, get a test, and then you can leave isolation after 7. So for the teams with players, if they have a positive player and no one wants to get tested on the club, then we want them to take 10 days off, as long as no one in that time period in the group also starts to show asymptomatic.
Okay, so as long as if teams do have a player test, as long as they're getting tested, again, I think last week, this one senior men's team perhaps should not have played this past weekend, but
no, they shouldn't have. I don't know who it was, but they should not have.
So again, I'm not going to divulge my sources as a journalist. I don't have to, so I'm not going to divulge my sources. But I think the message is out there that there are ways that if you do have a positive test, you can still return to play relatively quickly, as long as you're willing to go get a quick test and get as many of your players cleared as possible, which these days is pretty doable in most areas, I know.
Yeah, so you don't want to, like, if we had so there was, I won't name the club, but there was a club that had a player that was positive, And then some people went and got tested the next day after interacting with that person. That's not how these things work. So what you want to do,
give us your background, Carrie, as a
yeah. So you want to wait.
You're a little more qualified than others to talk about this.
You want to wait 5 days. So the likelihood that you're going to show up as having issues is normally, the range, I think they say, is anywhere from like 2 to 14 days. And that's why the original information was 14 days. But if you take a look at the CDC guidelines, they've made theirs shorter. And I think it's because most people show up as symptomatic within 5 days after contact with that person. So that's why they want you to wait, because the tests look for, and most of them look for presence of the virus. And so it needs time to amplify.
Right.
So, since you've kind of opened the door a little bit on the protocols, we'd really, really like to see better social distancing on the sidelines. I saw a few photos from this weekend and heard about a few socials, which we are discouraging from happening. So I think that just the difficult thing with that is that if we have people that turn up positive, we won't know if it's from the match or from your drink up after, and you're more likely to contract COVID if you're indoors. So
yeah, 100%. I think I saw Palm Beach reaching out to Fort Lauderdale about their game this weekend and said, if we do have a social, it will likely be at the field. And I think obviously it depends on park situations and whether you have to have, whether you're even allowed alcohol or whether it has to be. I know most parks don't allow it. Some will turn a blind eye if you're drinking it out of a cup, etc. But a lot of this stuff's just common sense. I know you want to be with you. I know being outside, there's a lot less chance of you catching it, but still on a sideline where you're near players, as well, that are sweating and breathing all over you. Just have some common sense, guys. As Charlie posted that little graphic there. You can still enjoy your rugby on the sideline while wearing a mask. So hopefully, and as you said, Carrie, with the 5 days, if you do have a positive test the week before a game, especially at that first practice on a Tuesday, you're really going to have to sort of shut things down until at least 2 weekends after that. So hopefully these teams, listen, this is our first weekend back, and I think we knew, just as you guys did, there was going to be some hiccups around the state with this first game. So hopefully people will be listening up and understand that there's a reason these protocols are in place.
We'll see.
We'll see, right? Yeah, listen, as you've posted on Facebook on some of my stuff, there's a lot of places that aren't playing rugby right now. We're very lucky to be playing rugby. So I think people need to understand that it can be taken away from us, in a heartbeat. If there's a couple of outbreaks and you as a union decide that we've had enough, especially with, we only had maybe a third of the teams playing this past weekend. This weekend's even more crazy with U23 coming in and U19 starting again.
Yeah, Northern California and Rocky Mountain have really been pushing out that it would be really bad for the sport. When I first started playing rugby, we were all known as the people that ran around the field naked. And
yes.
so you'd meet people, you'd be in a professional environment, you say play rugby, and the first thing people are like, does she run around a field naked? And so that for some people might have seemed funny, but if you're like the sport that spread COVID everywhere, it's probably not very socially responsible. So we don't want that image.
No.
We haven't issued a statement like those other unions. Maybe they're more progressive than we are. I don't know. So.
Listen, it's taken years to sort of shed the, drunken game stigma that we used to have around rugby. I think it's got a lot better over the years, I think. But something like this, we've seen, and it really depends where you are in the state. We've seen Miami-Dade, obviously, give Miami RFC some trouble with field availability. You just got to abide by your local guidelines and obviously listen to what the union has to say. All right, let's get Carrie. I'm going to keep you in here. Hang around for a bit because the next thing I want to talk about is something you could probably fill us in on. Now, I'm going to talk about, before I go to that game that's on the screen, I'm going to talk about a game that didn't happen, which was Gainesville against Orlando. Gainesville ended up withdrawing from the game due to not being able to field a team of competitive players. Now, does the union have anything in place, Carrie, regarding cancellation/forfeits regarding COVID, or is it just in this situation, it just is what it is?
I think right now we're being more lenient as we're trying to feel things out. I know that people probably think I I'm saying that because it was Gainesville, but I'm not coaching them anymore. But it was, we know that we would rather not penalize people at this time because we'd rather have a team be forthcoming of, we've had a few players. I know that they had at least one front row sitting out because they were awaiting a test result. And I think that they were also one of those teams similar to Miami that they were out. It took them a lot longer to get they were actually the last ones. I think Miami was last, but Gainesville was second to the last in terms of getting local approval.
Wow. Because you would think, I spent some time up in Howie in the Hills back in November, and you wouldn't know there was COVID up there at the moment. Because nobody wears a mask. And it seems like it hasn't got that far yet, but that's good to know that, I know the women really did a good job of sort of playing a limited schedule if they do end up playing. We'll get to that in a minute, but, setting a limited schedule so they could have space to reschedule games if they needed to. The men went the other way, just tried to pack things in a little bit, but hopefully those two can come to some kind of deal and find a spot to replay that game.
Yeah, we tried to leave more weekends off. There's definitely some more weekends off, and we just don't want to penalize anyone at this time. We're just hoping that teams can, if before Wednesday, it's easier for the referees, it's easier for the opposition team. So as soon as the more notice, the better, because Orlando could have had an opportunity for another match if they, could have figured that out. Yeah.
True. Yeah, I don't think any team should be chastised either. I saw a response to the email. I won't say who it was from, but so chastised the decision by Gainesville, but I don't think that should be happening anywhere. At least it was on a private email this time and not on public social media. So if they can reschedule that game, it'd be great. But in a game that did happen, Charlie was just posting that graphic. Tampa Crew edged Naples 15-14, which was clearly a tight affair. It normally is between those two teams. I didn't get any reports from the game, but this is how these West Coast battles go a lot of the time. Nice win for Crew. I refereed them a couple of weeks ago in a loss to Boca down here. So coming off that defeat, that's a nice victory for them. Kerry's going to hang out with us, I think, for a little while. In D4 action, Okapi, who have dropped down to this sort of social division, they smacked the Trident's B-side 45-7 down in 305. And Crew B made the clean sweep by the Bay with a 22 win over Naples B.
Correct.
So I think that's everything from the weekend, right, Charlie?
Pretty much. I'm just gonna put some pictures up from the Tampa Naples game, and I'm gonna take the opportunity to encourage clubs.
Yes.
Because going forward, we hopefully can do this with more coaches, and have more media, which is always talking about a game and not being able to see anything. It's really not too much fun. So I really I'm going to encourage and contact the teams around the state if they do videos or even pictures, to send them over. I'll set that up so we have more content to share.
Yeah, that'd be awesome to have some video, especially of highlights. Even if you take it with your phone, send it over to Charlie at Hey, we'll take what we can get, Charlie. I know you'd love a cameraman on a ladder every time like yourself, but we know that's not going to. But listen, anything you can provide that we can help promote your club on the podcast. There's some photos.
Even pictures. It's always fun because you get to see who's playing, right, and who's back, or who's gone. I was just looking at these pictures, and I noticed this kid from USF that played number 8, the South African kid. This one right here.
Yeah,
I see him playing for Tampa now.
Yeah, listen, we'll talk a little bit about the U23s in a second here, because that's obviously a nice little arrangement that's happened between the men's clubs and the colleges. A lot of the colleges aren't allowing their teams to play at the moment. I do notice nice new Naples swag in these photos, nice new jerseys and shorts, as well as Crew, both teams with new stuff. Charlie, you and I still have to do our rankings of uniforms in Florida. It's probably a good thing we waited just to see what these teams brought out this year. I do like this Crew look, a little less gold. The jerseys are getting better and better with these companies that are able to put whatever you like on it, basically.
Yeah. Sometimes too much.
Yes, sometimes. I do like these Crew jerseys, though. I like the skulls on the sleeves. We're gonna have to get a gallery together and make some comments on who we like and who we don't like.
Well, I need pictures.
That's right. So send your pictures to Charlie, CHARLEE @rugbyfl.com. All right, let's talk about next week. Upcoming games on the January 30th. There's a lot. Boca was supposed to host Miami in a D2 / there's a comment from Merrick who's getting video together for crew. Boca was supposed to host Miami this weekend coming up, but obviously that game's canceled. Miami haven't been able to find a field due to some COVID issues. They haven't even practiced yet, as far as I know. Kerry, can you update us on the Miami situation? Have they been keeping in touch with you?
Yeah, so I think that it's interesting. I think that the Tridents actually helped them get in touch with the right person, and it's sorted out. Yeah, I think that they've got it figured out now. So I know that they had to move a few of their early matches, but I think that they're looking to get in the mix again.
Awesome. So hopefully we'll see some black and gold hoops on the field soon. In the D2, so there's one more other game in the D2/D3, which is Palm Beach hosting Fort Lauderdale. Fort Lauderdale, obviously, I think had to forfeit their first match, or they postponed it. We're not sure where Fort Lauderdale stands. I was on an email chain today that said Fort Lauderdale did have 15 players, so they're going to try and play that game on Saturday. Hopefully, we can get it in there. Lauderdale, sort of hit hard times over the last couple of years, but are, one of the stronger clubs in the history of Florida Rugby. So hopefully, they get back on their feet again. We do have two brand new teams playing this coming weekend. South Florida Rugby Club will play their first ever 15s match when they host Okapi in D4. Kerry, what can you tell us about SoFlo RFC and how they've been coming along with you guys in the union, and you're excited to see them coming?
Yeah, I mean, Ryan came to our meeting this summer and he was all about making it happen. And I think that the rest of the union was excited to see another team. And they were really interested in expanding. I know even just today, when we were calling out for referees, and trying to get people certified, they have someone interested. I think it might have even been Ryan, because just trying to get more experience on their team. As another kind of a plug for people to become referees. One of the things that I used to encourage when I was coaching was that our captain also gets certified.
Yes.
Because that really opens up the lines of communication for the captain to the referee, because then they know what they can actually say and not say and what's useful. But anyway, so I think SoFlo's I think this will be their first real match. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, it should be fun. Yeah, going back to the referee thing, as a referee myself, it's always good when I have a captain who I know understands the laws of the game. When I have to spend half my game explaining the laws and why something's a penalty or not a penalty, it wastes my time. But it'd be great to see at least the captains kind of know what they're doing. And as well as South.
I want to add a little fact about SoFlo, because I actually spoke with Ryan recently. They are actually going to apparently play rugby league at the same time.
Oh, wow.
Which is pretty ambitious. Apparently I don't know if they have exactly.
Well, the rugby league down, obviously Jack Saxman, traditionally the rugby league team in Florida. And I think they were joined by a crew team or a West Coast team this past season.
Yes, and there's one in Orlando, I think. Terrible
sport. But if you want to go play 13-man rugby and stop and start every 5 seconds, that's fine with you. But listen, the more rugby we can get, no matter what kind it is, I'm glad to see. I think Charlie mentioned trying to get games at the new Inter Miami Stadium in Fort Lauderdale. I'm not sure how successful he'll be with that. If Mr. Beckham wants rugby teams tearing up his nice new surface that's barely been touched over the last year, but we'll see. We do have another new team joining South Florida RFC, and this is Ocala. Kind of came out of nowhere. An FAU alumni who started this team up in Ocala in the middle of bloody nowhere. It's not too far outside of Gainesville, actually, but we're having a good chat with him. And his name escapes me, so Kerry's going to have to give it to me. This is what happens.
Yeah, so it's Nick Hatcher.
Nick Hatcher, that's right.
Yeah, so they have had, according to them, good numbers at their training, and they're excited. They're going to have a bunch of new people. To remind me, my first game, none of us had ever played before. It's 15 new people, and I think they actually have, besides Nick, they have one or two other guys. I think maybe their captain might be from Ireland, I think. Anyway, I will say they have not been voted into the union yet, but the union
They're
is
just playing sort of as friendlies, right, to help fill out the schedule.
But we're excited to see them form. I think Ocala had a club back, and I don't even know how long ago it was. I'm going to say Ocala formed a club when Gainesville formed a club. So there used to be a team in Ocala called the Stallions.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
I'll get to the horse. There's a good horse reference in a second. I'll get to, but go ahead, Kara.
So yeah, I'm kind of sad that they're not the Stallion. That they didn't want to become like the Stallions again. But I guess I'm just showing my age there. And so anyway, so it's good to see Ocala have a club again.
Andrea Davenport, never heard of her. She's got a question. I'm kidding. She's obviously my wife, but she's asking, Carrie, while you're here, before I get back to the Ocala and the horse thing, how are teams playing with only 5 players sipped? Shouldn't they have been sipped to have been tackling for 6 weeks ahead of games? So maybe you can address. I'm not sure which teams.
I don't know either because they. I don't know.
South Florida, apparently.
Yeah, so they should be. I mean, that's what we were trying to get people to do was to be. You should be registered before you do contact. I don't know if they were registered as training members or not, but we actually, the board, I would say, with the 6 weeks, we were kind of had put that out there. We had a long discussion if we should have, you need to be doing contact training for 6 weeks before you play, because we thought that was kind of a safety thing. Right. So hopefully those players have not been tackling, but I will say that, because they have no coverage, they have no insurance, their entire club, their coach, everybody, it's down the tubes. But I've seen people sip before a match on the sideline. So
yeah. Listen, I mean, I assume as a team that isn't competing for anything, you could be, as long as you're sipped for somebody, you could be playing for, a team that's not, we're not trying to qualify for any, national championships at this point. So as long as you're sipped, period. Is that the case, Carrie? As long as you're sipped for somebody.
Yeah, and I think for like D4 we have, I think D4 for the upper divisions, for like D2, we wouldn't want someone registered with Naples and trying to play with crews. But for D4 we have like definitely more lenient roster rules. I think I forget the name of what we called the players picking up with you. And then the same for, we've said for the college players, we'd really like the college players to register with the senior teams, but we understand that is going to require some paperwork. If they want to register with their university and play with a senior team, that as long as they're registered, and they can only just play for one team.
Yeah, because obviously some of the college kids may have registered with their college team back at the fall, when we thought they might have a chance of playing in the spring, and obviously with a lot of the colleges just not allowing their kids to play rugby at this point. We'll get to the U23 thing in a second. Going back to Ocala, I did have a nice phone conversation with Nick Hatcher a couple of weeks ago before their first friendly, and he was saying that one of their players had injured himself falling off a horse. So maybe they should change their name back to the Stallions, which would only happen in Ocala, right? So Ocala will go up and play Tallahassee, a club, traditionally I guess not part of the Florida Union, but they've been gone for a couple of years, I think at least. But good to see them back and trying to get out on the pitch again. So Tallahassee and Ocala will sort of fill in the blank spots in that D4 schedule, which Charlie's showing right now. So good. So we'll have Tallahassee and Ocala as long as they both got 15 player sips. So obviously, otherwise they will not be supplied a referee on Saturday. Hopefully, them and South Florida will get their act together before Saturday. Also in D4, we have Ave Maria. Have we heard anything about them lately, Kerry? I know they're sort of a traditional, questionable side that we're never sure whether they're actually going to have a team or not.
Yeah, I don't. Well, one, I want to say Andrea's definitely right. I just want to say Andrea's right again, so she should get it on record because I was trying to add it as a comment and got all confused. So, like, this is just a moment. But I think
Andrea's right. I say that a lot.
Yeah. So, we're changing the rules to make a season happen during the circumstances. No, we're actually reviewing the rules every time we have a meeting, and the 6 week was back in October. But Ave Maria, I'd have to double check because we were still waiting to hear from them, but they might have been one of the clubs that we did. So that is Jesse and Evan have kind of been on top of that.
All right. Hopefully they have enough to play.
Yeah, Brian's in. So yeah, they're in.
There you
So
go.
that's-
Brian Vince of Naples fame says Ave Maria have about 20 kids right now. And obviously, being a private school, they may have a slight advantage over some of the bigger public schools in regards to access to facilities and things like that and being able to play. So hopefully we see Ave Maria out there on Saturday. Daytona will take on Orlando B, and we also have Indian River playing Lakeland, a team that I think this is sort of their first sort of full season. I know they played a little bit last year as well. But we also have the debut of our new under-23 league. For those that don't know, a lot of the public colleges in Florida were not allowed to get rugby going again, under the banner of the universities. So one thing that Kurt Swanner, I know that the union came together and formed, which is awesome, is this U23 league where local colleges, have formed up with their locals men's team, sipped with them, and will represent them as U23 team. So our first week of games for that will be Palm Beach, which is made up of FAU kids, hosting Okapi, who have one of the biggest clubs in the United States, have enough U23 kids to form a team on their own. So that's awesome. Tallahassee, which is obviously Florida State, will host Naples/Florida Gulf Coast, and Gainesville/the Gators will host Orlando/UCF. So, Carrie, how's that U23 process been coming along?
So Kirk and Evan have been workhorses in making that happen. And it's something that I think they have both talked about previously, trying to form in the fall competition before the colleges were competing in the spring, to allow more flexibility for some of the younger players that might have been coming out of high school that maybe weren't going to a college, that didn't necessarily feel ready for they might not feel ready for a men's team. And so they have been talking about making this happen for a very long time. And it kind of seems like the opportunity has worked out for the players that still want to play. I do think that for most of them, they've managed to get them registered with the senior men's teams, because that way they can play up if they want. So they could play for the under 23 team, if it is considered playing up. So sometimes it's not, but for the most part it would be. And so you still need to be registered in order to play. So the USA Rugby registration rules are still in place. We're just not requiring for some of the teams, if they do not want to transfer from a college team to a senior team, they can kind of stay on their college roster.
Okay. And how strict are we being for this U23 thing? Obviously, with most teams, not having a B-side, if my old ass wanted to go wander out there and play for Palm Beach, would I be allowed to, or are they being pretty strict on the U23 side of things?
I think they've got the age deadlines in there. They
Good.
Be, so I think that it's actually on the rosters, right? Or it used to be your age.
Oh, I haven't seen a printed roster in so long, because a lot of it's done now on the content management system. So I haven't seen a printed roster in a while. But
exactly,
that's great to see. I think a lot of these teams, that have perhaps local universities that don't have a full team of their own, could really get this sort of U23 thing going. It's a big thing in England. Colts rugby of U23 or U21, as you said, which kids out of college or not going to college that locally come out of high school that still want to play rugby, but you said don't want to put their body through the grind of a men's season. It's an awesome opportunity. And hopefully something good will come out of it, whether it's a full league or just a smaller, maybe South Florida league. We'll see what happens. But no, it's great to see the kids being able to play rugby along with everybody else this season. So U23s, and below that we have U19s, which are starting up this weekend. Key Biscayne Rats. I don't know if they still call themselves the Rats, but I still like to call them that. Hosting Boca. Cape Pirates hosting Naples. Jacks hosting Okapi. Long trip for the Okapi boys. I checked with them today, and they said 99% sure they're going up. So it's a good long trip for them to start the season. Never a fun task to deal with, going 5 hours to play rugby, but on the first day of the season. But great for them. And Sarasota will be hosting Wellington and making that cross-state trip. So, Carrie, before I let you go, anything you'd like to finish up with?
I just want to remind people that we're trying to get people back out there that want to play. We have the guidelines in place to try to do it as safely as possible. So if you have a positive case, we're not penalizing teams for moving things. I know that not everybody in the state thinks we should be playing rugby. And to those people, I say, put your boots on the shelf for a year. however long it takes you to feel comfortable. But we're going to facilitate people playing if we can.
Yeah, no, I think that's it. If people want to play, I think they should be allowed to play as long as the local recommended guidelines allow it. And if you don't want to play, as I said, nobody should be holding it against you. I forgot to mention Ruggerfest coming up in February as well. Seems to be a sort of a resurgent. I know they've changed it to a tennis-side, and they're focusing on that. And it seems talking to Nick Vickers the other day, seems like registration is going really well. And we could expect to have a nice little tournament going on February 20th for the first time in a number of years.
We should get them next week to show up.
Maybe we'll get Nick on next week. If we have a show next week. This is called Talking Florida Rugby occasionally, Charlie. It doesn't mean we're going right back to weekly stuff.
Well.
I'd like to. I'm a very busy man. Well, speaking of busy, Kerry's a very busy woman, and we'll let her get back to her family. Thanks for joining us tonight, Kerry. Appreciate you coming in for the feedback.
Thank you, Kerry.
Thank you.
Always.
All right, Charlie, I went over my hour. We didn't expect Kerry to jump on in, so I'm gonna use her as the excuse. But it was great information from our
Yes,
who's always willing to help out and give as much information as she can. I think the union has. Some people will say they haven't been communicating as well as they could have. Some people sort of a free for all. But I think things are sort of rounding into shape. We'll see what happens with the women, as I mentioned earlier, whether they end up playing a competition or not. But as I said, as I think I mentioned to you, if you want to play rugby, the opportunity is out there. If you don't, listen, nobody will hold it against you. And hopefully we can get through this, quote, season safely, without any major issues. Anything else to add, Charlie, before other than at the bottom of the screen there, you can help us out, especially Charlie with his rugbyfl.com. And the time and effort that he puts into creating that site and maintaining that site. Thanks to the referees, especially this Charlie. I was as surprised as you that the referees got to you with scores so quickly. Obviously, it's not their number one responsibility. They obviously have to report the scores on FloridaRugby.org, but they also reach out to you and text you the scores and get them up there as soon as possible. So it's a great place for people to gather at socials to keep an eye on the scores coming in around the state.
Well, they've been doing it for all these years, and finally they have gotten pretty good. I don't have to chase them so much.
Well, the first week of the season, you normally do. I know that.
Yeah. So, you know what? I remember we had a little mystery video that we were going to put at the beginning of the show.
Oh, yeah. What happened to that?
Well, I forgot. I just forgot. So I'm gonna put it on a way out.
All right, we did say we were going to be a little rusty, just as the referees and the players were this past week, having not been on a pitch in 10 months. It's been a couple of months at least since we haven't been on here. So we appreciate you guys joining us. I saw the numbers were pretty high. That's great to see. And we're going to try and do this every week. Again, get your photos and videos and match reports in. I'd love to talk about who scores the tries and who kicks the penalties. So Charlie, CHARLEE at rugbyfl.com, or you can message me, text me, email me. I'm pretty much everywhere with your information after each game, so we don't have to try and go chasing you down. I'm not sure whether we'll do this on Sunday nights or Monday nights. We'll see how my work schedule allows. But again, the information, if you want to help Charlie and the podcast out there, rugbyfl.com/GoFundMe, or you can Venmo at rugbyfl. Any donations are all gratefully accepted and go right back in.
We already got one, so thank you.
Thanks to whoever that was. You going to name them, Charlie? Is it anonymous?
Karen Liu.
Karen Liu, honey, thank you so much from Fort Miami RFC. We appreciate the help, and hopefully other ones will follow and help us keep this podcast going. So we'll see you next week after hopefully another safe and not too crazy weekend of Florida Rugby, though. A lot of games.
Okay.
Cheers, Charlie.
Hey, nice seeing you, Ross. Thank you, everybody. And I'm going to run this little mystery video that is very nice, interesting. And
stick around to watch this. It's a good motivational video by Jim Telfer of the British and Irish Lions.
We'll see you next week, hopefully.
Cheers, guys.
Bye-bye.
There's two kinds of rugby players, boys. There's honest ones and there's the rest. Okay. The honest player gets up in the morning and looks himself in the fucking mirror and sets his standard, sets his stall out and says, I'm going to get better, I'm going to get better, I'm going to get better. He doesn't complain about the food or the beds or the referees or all these sort of things. These are just peripheral things that weak players are always complaining about. The dishonest player. If I tell a player he's too high, or he's not tight enough, he's too fucking high. He's not tight enough, and that's it. And I'm the judge, and not the player. And we accept that, and we do something about it. I've coached Lions teams before, and we've complained and carped about this, that, and the next thing. And I liken it a bit to the British and the Irish going abroad on holiday. The first thing they look for is a fucking English pub. The second thing they look for is a pint of Guinness. And the third thing they look is a fish and chip shop. The only thing they accept is the sun. They don't take on anything that's good or decent or different abroad. If we do that, we're sunk. Because we don't go back bitching, we don't go back carping, oh, we've done it this at Twickenham or Arms Park or Lansdowne Road or Murrayfield. No, these days are past. What's accepted over there is not accepted over here. And it's not accepted by us, me, and you. So from now on, the page is turned. We're on a new book. Different attitudes. We're honest with ourselves. And in many respects in the forward play, and let's be fucking honest, we've been second best. We can match them, but only if we get it right here and right here. 2 weeks. There's battles all along the way. There's a battle on Wednesday, there's a battle on Saturday, there's a battle next Wednesday, and there's a battle the following Saturday, there's a battle the following Tuesday, until we're fucking into the big arena. The one we were there on Saturday. And by that time the fucking Lions have to make them fucking roar for us. Because they'll be baying for blood. Let's hope it's fucking Springbok blood. We're focused. From now on, the kit gloves are off. It's bare knuckle fucking stuff. And only at the end of the day will the man who's standing on his feet win the fucking battle.